Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, assalamu alaikum, wherever in the world you're watching me right now. I'm Mohsin and I welcome you to my Betek, where today we'll talk about a keyword, introspection or self-reflection or self-analysis or catharsis or in Urdu, tazkiya or tazkiya nafs or, more, or so many words that I could think of that entail this broader psychological um, umbrella term, introspection. Now, this sounds like a heavy word and probably is. Before we jump into it further, I would like to thank each one of you for making this series a success and watching all the previous webisodes. And thanks for sending in your feedback and questions. You can write to me at mohsin@thegbox.org. The email address is also in the video description. Now, it's really important that before we jump into the nitty-gritties of the very term, we first need to look at the definition of the term. In very simple words, it simply means to look inside. Okay, and it's an examination of one's own conscious thoughts and feelings. So if you look at from previously, we've been discussing about, we started off with the concept of light within, then we looked at how that light translates into our daily life actions and what does the religion say in that regard, or what does literature say in that regard. Then we looked into other elements of personal development. And I guess it all culminates into this very ability of an individual to introspect or to look within themselves. It's basically observing one's own mental state. So, in a very spiritual context, it would mean that you refer. This refers to examination of one's soul. So you look inside yourself. Whereas, if in a more science psychology terms, it's more related to human self-reflection contrasted against external observations. It's not like someone else observing you, it's you yourself observing your own actions, and it's basically having a privileged access to one's own mental state. Now, introspection has been a topic of philosophical discussion for throughout uh, years, and I guess thousands of years. Now, Plato once said that why should we not calmly and patiently review our thoughts and thoroughly examine and see what these appearances in us really are? So he was referring to these different mental states that manifest in an individual as appearances. Uh, Right. Different religions also talk about this concept of introspection. You might have come across words like nepsis in Christianity, or utrikraman in Jainism, or meditation in Hinduism and Buddhism, and muhasaba or ihtisab in Islam. Uh, and an important question we really have to ask is, do you want to look at it in a very philosophical way, or you want to stick to the very practical elements of it? And in today's session, I really want to focus on the practicality part of the concept of introspection. So an important question that rises in very practical terms is how often do you sit back, relax, and reflect on your life? So that's the key question for today's discussion. Now, some of you would say a lot, probably people like me who like to overthink. Some of you would say sometimes, some of would you say some when something bad happens or when something really good happens to them. And some would say, yeah, only I'm when being very thoughtful or cheesy or when I'm in the mood. There is no right or wrong answer here. We are all unique beings. We have different ways of reflecting on our actions, events, thoughts, and more. And the most important thing is that you are reflecting. Quite often in this rapidly moving world, we do not have time as people like to blame time for everything. One feels lost. They do not feel positive about others or themselves. They seek that bad energy from all around. And I guess that is really the point when you need to stop and reflect for a moment. So, self reflection and introspection is basically a mechanism that helps you scrutinize your internal feelings by going inward, which helps you to rebuild probably that lost relation you have within yourself. Often, people say find your unique voice, and one feels quite um intimidated in knowing who that self is and identifying that self. I know it's a long struggle to identifying who you really are, but then again, to do that or to be on that journey, you really have to build that connection within yourself to understand what goes inside as what manifests outside in your reality. Basically, it helps you to seek also solutions to your problems, which largely are made by your own thinking or largely your own making. So I really look at it in this way. So yes, we should reflect on our thoughts, but the lens we use to do that is really important too. Imagine if you're a fish thinking all your life whatever goes on the surface of the earth is far more interesting. And similarly, if I'm a bird who thinks whatever goes in the ocean is far more interesting than my life, I would never be satisfied or contented with anything. And in a way, I would have lost my own uniqueness. I didn't really understand myself. I was looking at others and trying to find myself. And in a way, I was reflecting, but I was reflecting in the wrong direction. I was not reflecting on my own strengths and shortcomings. Rather, I was looking at others and making assumptions about myself. So do remember the assumptions we have about ourselves and others can either empower us or disempower us. It is really important to think about the lens we use to look at our lives and others' lives. Yes, introspection is looking inside you. But to me, I that's where I redefine introspection for myself. For me, it is an art of knowing when to zoom in and when to zoom out. This is very important. You have to sometimes zoom in to find that inner peace, but then you sometimes have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture, probably to be more thankful about things you have. At first, it might seem you have less or relative to others, but then you have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the universe, and the energies around you. So even in life's many storms, you do have the power to stand in the center of your own peace, and there is always something to be thankful about. So it's all about reflecting, but reflecting in a very careful manner and knowing when to zoom in and when to zoom out into your own reality and into the reality of others. Right. A very useful tool I came across is this 10 questions that are a great way to start self reflecting. So, over this weekend, I would really want you to spend some time trying to answer 10 of these questions, which some of might apply more to you or less, but I'll share those questions with you anyways. First one. Am I using my time wisely? Am I taking anything for granted? Am I employing a healthy perspective? That's very important. That's the lens you're looking from. Am I living true to myself? Am I waking up in the morning ready to take on the day? Am I thinking negative thoughts before I fall asleep? Am I putting enough effort into my relationships? Am I taking care of myself physically and mentally? Am I letting matters that are out of my control stress me out? And finally, am I achieving the goals that I've set for myself? So these are some of the questions that one could use to start self reflecting about themselves. And of course, each one of them could be broken down into different facets when sitting down and reflecting. But remember, this comes with a caution. When you have reached the point of obsession instead of dedication towards self reflection, you probably have taken it too far. So remember that self reflection is not self obsession. You don't have to be obsessed with your own self and only reflecting all the time on everything to that extent that it makes you more stressed, depressed, and anxious than ever. So the key here is to have that sense of balance. And we can only achieve it if we are aware of ourselves and others around us. I often come across a lot of friends and people who would uh, want sort of clarity on these topics, and they would feel like they don't have, uh, they feel more anxious, and then they sort of overthink each decision they're taking in life and not really going with the flow. Or as Dory in Finding Nemo says, just keep swimming or just keep flowing. So the idea